spent trillions of dollars, 6 trillion according to a recent Harvard study, on these wars of regime change. Tens of thousands of our soldiers have been killed and wounded and are not getting the adequate care that we will bring to all of our veterans who need housing and jobs and mental health care, by the way, in addition to full health care. But the costs of these wars has been trillions of dollars, and what we have to show for it is what?
Nothing.
Failed states. Mass refugee migrations that are tearing apart Europe and the Middle East, and worse, terrorist threats. It's not getting better, folks. It actually gets worse with each cycle of violence. It's time to stop that cycle of violence. We call for a new offensive in the Middle East. It's called a peace offensive in the Middle East. It starts with a weapons embargo. And it continues with a freeze on the bank accounts of those countries, our allies, who are continuing to fund these terrorist extremist groups around the world, in particular Saudi Arabia, that Hillary Clinton herself identified as still the major funder of these terrorist enterprises long after 9/11. So we cannot, if you remember where all this started, this was like the brilliant idea of the CIA and the Saudis that we were going to create this terrorist resistance to the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. So that's kind of where this got started. We trained Osama bin Laden, you may have heard about that, and some other very nefarious characters out there. The bottom line is, we cannot with one hand fight terrorism, while with the other hand, we and our allies have been funding terrorism, arming terrorism, and training terrorism. We got it started, we can shut it down by doing the right thing. A foreign policy based on international law. So, yes, exactly. And it means ending the funding to our allies who are massively violating international law. So that means, with all due humility, because we ourselves, the US of A, has been leading the charge here in violations of international law, like in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya, for example. So we need to say to our allies, like the government of Israel, that we're not going to continue to fund your army, continue to while you are violating international law. And the same thing to our allies, the Saudis, that we are not going to be in the business of supplying you with $100 billion of weapons while you are violating international law, committing war crimes in Yemen and human rights violations, massively in your own country, competing with ISIS as an example of just dreadful, inhumane, just incredible, brutal violence. So we need to stand up and do the right thing. The great thing right now, is that we are at this absolutely historic moment right now when we have the power and the American people are begging for what we've got. This is about us standing up, with the power that we have to say no to the lesser evil, to fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it. We can create an America and a world that works for all of us. A world that puts people, planet, and peace over profit. The power to create that world is not just in our hopes, it's not far away in our dreams. It's right here, right now, in Memphis, across this country. That power is in our hands. Thank you so much.